All right, we are here in ENGT 150. I just want to kind of go back through, discuss some of the things in the textbook that we need to know. Hopefully, for most of you, depending on where you're at in your course sequence, this will be a review, but we still need to review it and make sure that everybody is understanding and following along with what the expectations are, not just in the class, but in the job as general. So, um, so chapter one in the textbook is all about professionalism in manufacturing. So, and we will talk a little bit about what that means here to you as you go. Now, as you think about it, uh, as you're taking your coursework and trying to proceed in and getting any type of industrial training, you're trying to prepare yourself to become a professional in the industry. And as a machinist, as an engineer, you are considered a professional. As somebody involved in quality control, you are considered a professional. So we want to kind of go over some of this stuff. This is just a list of some of the things and responsibilities and roles that you might have something to look into and be aware of as you go. In all of our course sequence following through to get your associate's degree, we pretty much cover all of this in a variety of different classes and review from time to time on all of them as well. So um, the way this textbook is broken down, part one is your intro to manufacturing, part two is your intro to machining, part three is the intro to CNC, and then part four is kind of your advanced technology. Now here in ENGT 150 and 151, we're going to be exclusively dealing with the part two in the textbook. So your reading won't be super heavy, but there is information in there that's valuable, and we'll be looking largely at part two. So as you go, I will let you kind of go through and stop and look at these slides as you want to. But here's where I kind of want to stop, and kind of discuss this for a minute. What are you really, really wanting to become? How are you wanting to use this information and learn and take control of what you're learning in the classroom and putting it out on the job? So, or as the question asks here, what does it take to be regarded as a Top Gun professional machinist? Well, hopefully by now in your education, you realize that skill and knowledge are skill sets that we all have to have as machinists, as engineers, as technicians, in any of our roles that we do in a manufacturing or in an industrial technology environment. All right. There's also that third skill set that is kind of a little harder for us to discuss. And that's kind of an idea of that professionalism and what does it really mean to be a professional? How do you act and behave on the job, outside of the job, especially if you're wearing your company's logo, and what are those expectations? Now, we know and we've discussed how machine shops are precision quality environments. We talk about how you need to pay attention and pay attention to a lot of really precise detail and become very meticulous and methodical in your thought process and in the way you approach a task. That kind of applies as we sit here and look at becoming a professional machinist and as we go through here too. So, depending on where you work, a lot of times rules are posted, but there's also a lot of implied rules, things of what people refer to as common sense. And sometimes, as a young person, you may or may not really fully know and understand what those expectations are. So you kind of have to read the room a little bit and pay attention and kind of develop that skill of understanding a little bit of what implied rules or what implied expectations are. So the author of this textbook, that's what they call professionalism. So, and of course, as we look at professionalism, these are certainly the things that are going to kind of help you move up the pay scale. They're going to be, in addition to your knowledge, your learning, and your skills, this professionalism will also help you kind of climb that corporate ladder, so to say. Maybe get you from running the machine into the programming department, or maybe get you from programming into a foreman or a supervisory position or any other type of management. These are the aspects of professionalism here that you kind of have to know. All right, so what are some of the skills that we're talking about? And again, hopefully for many of you, this is going to be a review. We largely talk about some of this in the OSHA related class. You're going to get this more. This is also going to, you're going to see this in in some of the other classes that are requirements as well. So obviously we've got to have our personal protection on when we're working in a machine shop. So that includes the clothing that we wear, closed-toed shoes, no loose-fitting clothes, nothing hanging loosely. So we'll kind of go over those: eye protection and hearing protection. We're also looking at material handling. So we're going to be lifting parts on and off of the machines that we use. Sometimes those parts are going to be long and big and heavy. Sometimes they're going to just be small handheld parts, but we still need to be aware of how to material handle those. So we might be using lifting devices. We might be lifting with our body. And of course, there's always the idea of storing those materials and the different machine accessories that go along with the machine. So we got to be aware of material handling. Likewise, we got to handle all the shop supplies. Talk about SDS, safety data sheets, your right to know what chemicals and hazards you're exposed to on the workplace, lubricants, properly lubricating your machine, keeping it up and running so that everything is working correctly in your machine, using and disposing of those shop chemicals. Some chemicals we can't just go dump down the sink, so you got to be aware of all of that material and what the right thing to do is when we use and dispose all of those shop chemicals. In the workplace, especially in, and even in place in industrial manufacturing in general, most places are trying to become lean, what we refer to as lean, and green as well. And this, to be honest with you, this is also creeping into the medical community a lot as well. So we've got to maintain the machinery the right way. Now, lean basically is kind of referring to a reduction of waste. We'll go a little bit more into lean. And green, of course, has to do with trying to make it as environmentally friendly as well. And I'd like to think that the U.S. pretty much leads the way. U.S. and European countries kind of leading the way on green manufacturing, trying to make things more or better for our environment as we produce stuff. There's a lean manufacturing technique that you will start to learn called 5S, and this is a process where most companies start. It's basically a way to kind of sort and standardize your workspace, put kind of, if you think about everything in a place, and so that you have quick access and you know exactly where it's at. So that you'll become a lot more familiar with 5S. We've talked a little bit in the past about ISO, the International Standards Organization, and guidelines that they have for creating and maintaining responsible environments. This is one of the standards that we have. Of course, we'll talk more about the ISO 9001 um, and the ISO 9000 certifications and guidelines there for that as well. 5S and ISO we talk a lot more about in ENGT, our ENGT 160, where we basically discuss quality control and metrology and measurement. All right, so you guys all know that you need to have your safety glasses on. So they need to be Z87 ANSI approved. So make sure that usually when you buy safety glasses, they are labeled. So in general, they need to be side shielded as well. You can use clear yellow tinted lenses in the class, no other dark lenses. So the inside and in buildings, the expectation is clear yellow tinted lenses. Obviously, jewelry and whether they're rings or necklaces, bracelets, and so forth are out because they can get caught and snagged in machinery. And of course, a lot of the material that jewelry is made out of conducts electricity as well. All right, so good quality work shoes. We've mentioned that. Again, this is should be just a review. I don't require steel toes in the class, but most of our manufacturers around the area do require steel toes, so you would have to buy a pair of steel toes to wear. Natural fiber, well-fitting clothing. So you got to be careful. So some synthetic polymers and stuff that clothes are made out of, like nylon and polyester, sometimes will melt, and they can melt right to your skin if you got hot chips and so forth flying off a machine. So you want to be aware of the natural fiber clothing that you're using. So either cotton or cotton blend is very good. I will oftentimes wear my apron. They're shop coats. Again, with all of these, you got to make sure to watch the ties and hanging pockets so that they don't get caught. Again, that idea here, nothing dangling or loose, including your long hair. Here's a picture, of course, of three individuals, kind of giving you an idea as does their attire here demonstrate a professional attitude? So which one of all of these do you think kind of looks a little bit more professional in their attire? And now this is kind of subjective. In truth, all of these I'm sure are capable machinists. But there are certain things that we would be looking at, and not just us. We all kind of form opinions based on the way people pose themselves, the way they dress, the way they look. It's kind of natural human nature, not necessarily meaning that it's right or wrong, but we do have these kind of implied thoughts sometimes. And of course, if you are somebody in management, looking at employees and reviewing employees, whether for performance reviews or promotion, certainly that might come into play on how the person is dressed and their professionalism. All right. So, handling materials here. I want to bring this up. Obviously, in our lab, we're working with a lot of plastics or composite lumber, so it's not hugely expensive material. But out there in industry, a lot of times you will be expected to manage expensive technical materials. I have machined materials like Inconel and titanium in my work career. Those are very expensive materials, so you've got to be aware of how to use those and how to handle them as well. Same thing with carbide. I mean, carbide is more expensive than high-speed steel, and it's also brittle. So, if you just bought a brand new $250 carbide end mill and you drop it on the floor, you just ruined that carbide end mill. So you've got to be able to know how to handle those materials. You have to know how to lift and carry those materials as well. And of course, storage of all of these machine accessories as well as materials is also important. All right. So we do not have any overhead cranes. We do have some lift tables, floor jacks, so that you might need to use if asked. So be aware of that. I will show you. And the one thing that I want to make very clear to you, if at any time you do not know, the first and foremost thing that you need to do is ask. So either ask myself or ask the lab assistant so that we can give you proper instruction on lifting, the way to lift items or movement of those items, or even how to just set up and run or do something on the machine as well. All right, a couple of examples as far as them moving material. So safely moving, sometimes long parts do require two people, or long heavy stuff, ask and get help. So be aware of your safety data sheets at any job. We're going to talk a little bit this week about using lubricants on the machines when they at startup or at the end of the day, just trying to make sure that everything is good to go. And we'll discuss through the course using and disposing of any shop chemicals. So you'll go over learning how to read an SDS in the OSHA class, so you will get more familiar with this as we go as well. So talking about lean manufacturing, your workspace. So we all have a responsibility for maintaining the machinery, keeping things cleaned, organized, neat, and not just leaving things laying around. Now, I will admit I'm kind of guilty of this myself sometimes too. So it's something that we all need to be aware of and kind of work together to remind everybody and help each other out to keep the lab clean and in good working order so that it's ready to go every time we need to go back and start setting up or running and cutting parts on the machines. All right. Again, this is all part of that maintenance aspects of the machine that we'll go over this week. So, all right, kind of going back into the whole lean concept here. Be efficient, be precise, be professional, always be looking